Sexting, porn, revenge, and cyberbullying are not just modern problems of technology. They are reflections of something deeper within the human condition. The way desire, ego, shame, and the hunger for validation play out in digital spaces where our bodies and reputations are more vulnerable than ever. Because what was once whispered in secret is now immortalized in screenshots. What was once an intimate moment between two people is now a weapon in the hands of betrayal. And what was once youthful curiosity about sex is now amplified into humiliation, addiction, and exploitation through the endless machinery of the internet. So if we truly want to understand these phenomena, we must look not only at the technological aspect but at the psychology and philosophy behind them. Because sexting is not just the exchange of private pictures, it is the digital form of desire seeking to be seen, wanting to be validated, craving attention and closeness in a world where physical presence is often absent. But the real issue is not the act itself but the vulnerability it creates. When a man or woman sends an intimate photo, they are essentially saying, "I trust you with a part of me I do not show to the world." And in that trust lies the potential for beauty, but also for disaster. Because if that trust is broken, it becomes porn revenge. It becomes a public execution of someone's dignity. It becomes a scar that lives forever in search engines and on screens, haunting them in ways physical wounds never could. And when it spirals further, it feeds the cruel machinery of cyberbullying, where groups, peers, and strangers weaponize shame, comments, and mockery to destroy the spirit of a person who only wanted love, intimacy, or approval. And what makes this all so devastating is that sex, the most natural and sacred force of human life, is being twisted into a tool for power, humiliation, and profit. And here is where Stoic philosophy gives us light. Because the Stoics taught that no man is harmed by what another says about him, but by the way he allows himself to react. Yet we must also acknowledge that digital cruelty leaves scars not only on the mind, but on the soul. And in this battlefield of lust, shame, and exposure, the only true freedom is found in the mastery of one's own desires and one's own boundaries. Which is why sexting, revenge porn, and cyberbullying cannot be solved by laws and policies alone, though they are necessary, but by cultivating within ourselves a philosophy of responsibility, of restraint, and of respect. For a man must ask himself before sending a picture, am I seeking to connect, or am I simply enslaved to lust? And a woman must ask, is this the intimacy I want, or is this an illusion of closeness that will leave me emptier tomorrow? And anyone who receives such trust must pause and ask, do I honor this or do I betray it? For if you betray it, you are not only harming another but also killing your own humanity, turning sacred intimacy into cruel entertainment. And in the Stoic way, discipline is freedom. The freedom from being dragged by lust into regret, the freedom from exposing another to shame, the freedom from becoming a slave to ego that feeds on control and humiliation. And so, for the young man obsessed with sexting, you must learn that a woman's nude is not a trophy to boast about, but a sacred gift of trust that should humble you, not inflate you. And for the woman pressured into sexting by fear of losing his attention, you must learn that no real love demands your exposure as proof of loyalty, for real love asks for your presence, your laughter, your heart, not the digital currency of your body. And for both, the lesson is clear. Intimacy is something that belongs in trust, not in memory cards, not in cloud storage, not in hands that could turn it into a weapon the moment love fades into anger, because lust is temporary. But shame, once it is captured, is permanent in the digital world. And when betrayal takes place and becomes revenge porn, the victim feels stripped not only of clothes but of humanity itself, because their body, their sexuality, their vulnerability becomes public property, consumed, judged, mocked by people who never knew their story. And in that humiliation lies the cruelest form of slavery. The slavery of a person whose private self has been stolen and turned into public spectacle. And what is cyberbullying, if not the mob version of this cruelty, where instead of one betrayer there are hundreds, thousands of strangers, each pressing like, comment, or share, each throwing stones in a digital coliseum, where shame is the entertainment. And here the Stoic reminder is necessary, that true power is not in what they do to you but in what you hold firm within yourself. But even then, we must not romanticize resilience, for even the strongest spirit can break under daily mockery, and even the most disciplined mind can feel crushed under the endless replay of their nakedness being shared without consent. And this is why the modern man and woman must become warriors of responsibility, not warriors of lust. Because if you think sex is only about pleasure, you will chase it recklessly and hurt others in the process. But if you see sex as energy, as trust, as union, you will treat it as something sacred, something not to be thrown around like cheap currency, but to be honored with restraint and presence. And if you adopt the Stoic view that everything external, your reputation, your image, your body is vulnerable to the cruelty of others, but your mind, your virtue, your choices remain yours alone, then you will build a fortress inside yourself, where no screenshot, no rumor, no leaked video can destroy the essence of who you are. Yet this is not to excuse the perpetrators, because those who commit revenge porn are not just cowards, but destroyers of souls. And those who bully online are not just teenagers having fun, but architects of despair, sometimes driving their victims into depression, self-harm, even suicide. And so, if you are listening to this, you must remember, you are responsible for the way you treat another's trust. And if you are a victim, you must know that your worth is not measured by what has been stolen from you, but by what you refuse to surrender. The strength of your mind, the purity of your choices, the dignity of your heart. For in this digital age where intimacy can be weaponized, discipline, respect, and restraint are the only shields we have. And if you wish to live free, live with honor, for to sex without awareness is to gamble with your soul. To share another's trust without consent is to lose your humanity. And to bully behind a screen is to reveal the weakness you are trying to hide. So let us stop confusing lust with love, exposure with intimacy, cruelty with power, because none of these bring peace. And ultimately, the man who masters his desire, who refuses to exploit another's vulnerability, who treats sex not as conquest, but as communion, is the man who rises above the slavery of lust and the filth of betrayal. And the woman who refuses to surrender her dignity for attention is the woman who owns her freedom. And together, they build a love that no screenshot can steal, no bully can destroy, no revenge can poison. Because it is rooted not in digital shadows, but in human truth. And that is the only way to turn this age of humiliation into an age of dignity, not by banning the internet or demonizing sex.